Welcome to SVG-TV News. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. The incompetence and dysfunctionability of regional air carrier LIAT impacts heavily on the economic growth of this country, so says former chairman of LIAT Airline Selection Committee, Burton Williams. Williams made his statements on Sunday's Hit Stock program, which focused on LIAT's performance and its future following this country's government's request to the carrier's Antigua executives for better service to SVG. Williams noted that while LIAT is an important pillar in the Vincentian economy, immediate measures must be taken to improve the airline's overall service.
Where we are today in our development as a country, we have to, in a very serious way, take another look at our transportation, as our air transportation means into St. Vincent. And because LIAT is not fulfilling them in a manner acceptable to our population, to our people, it is not fulfilling them in a manner which is acceptable to the business community.
Meantime, member of the Tourism Association, Cools Vanlo, is of the opinion that the regional carrier's monopolistic position and lack of competition is a major contributor to the airline's lackluster service.
A further issue with LIAT is that it is protected from competition, and therefore the real costs when compared with other services cannot be estimated, especially in the case of St. Vincent the Grenadines, because again, by national policy it would appear that all other airlines are excluded, although I need mention that some of the other islands have a bigger mix of airlines providing access.
And opposition MP Daniel Cummins criticized the government's failure to allow other airlines to operate in SVG and classifies the decision as dumb.
You know, Caribbean Airline has been going into Grenada, St. Lucia, all of these places and giving people an alternative. We have decided, although I heard this statement some time ago that we are about to sign an agreement with Caribbean Airlines, we are denied that opportunity of having another option. Why this is so, I mean, and you're hearing of the JetBlue situation. Again, this unholy desire to remove any quote-unquote competition from LIAT is just an insane thing to think about. Anybody who remembers when Caribstar was here, when LIAT had real competition, it was $198 to go to Trinidad. EC dollars I'm talking about.
Cummins further noted that LIAT's performance has failed miserably in regards to customer service and its administrative endeavors. Meanwhile, travel consultant Ken Murray said that it was the observation that LIAT staff's primary interest was their paychecks and not the welfare of their customers. Murray added that the shareholder government's interference may be a contributing factor to the way LIAT's management operates and the timing of some government's public's disapproval of LIAT's service is questionable.
It was very unfortunate that the Prime Minister had to wait until our national football team was leaving and its service was disrupted by LIAT as a result of that, they're not making their connection. What happened to all those people who were stranded before by LIAT, who had to make connection? What did the Prime Minister do?
Right. Who daily suffering inconvenience.
Daily. But this is just one team for going and they miss, regardless of how many they're 17 or 20. But what about the 40 or 50 or 100 persons who inconvenience, right? Why did he not come out at during those times as a shareholder of the company of LIAT? They should ensure that the service that is provided for the product that they are offering is of a high quality standard.
In other news, opposition leader Arnim Eustace is of the view that the ruling Unity Labour Party government has not been doing enough to create youth employment. At a recently held media conference, Eustace said a statement made in Parliament by Minister of Transport and Works Julian Francis is evidence of the government's lack of concern.
Julian Francis, when making his budget presentation last year, said that the government's budget was not about creating jobs. And his party leader, Gonsalves, constantly boasts about how many people are now on poor relief since his government has been in office. Our position on this is simple. If in a small, relatively poor, heavily indebted country with high unemployment, and that unemployment has gotten worse under his watch, you as a government can come to tell the citizens that you have no interest in creating jobs. If you have done that, you have failed. You have failed as a government. If a minister of government comes to the budget discussion and says the budget is not about jobs, you have failed as a government.
Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves says although there has been minimal damage with the passage of Tropical Storm Matthew, natural disasters are still costly. Speaking on the radio on Sunday, the Prime Minister, whose portfolio includes disaster management, says a number of homes were structurally damaged and agriculture was adversely affected by the storm. He reiterated that the country will not seek overseas assistance, but will use local finances to assist persons.
We haven't gotten a full estimate of the damage. You may recall that I said on Thursday that for actual relief, we are not seeking any assistance from anybody. We can handle that out of our own resources, but there are some reconstruction issues which we will have to put in a package in order to get financing for. Some small things we can do. I'm awaiting the report from the Ministry of Agriculture because I know there's some bananas have been blown down in different places. Like for instance, when I went up in my constituency on Thursday evening, I got reports from up in Congo Valley. There's a particular area in which bananas and plantains were blown down. I know, for instance, the National Properties farm at Rabuka, they suffer a lot of losses. They just don't work there. One or two other pockets here and there.
Noting that the country is still recuperating from the damage of the 2010 storm, which consumed a third of the gross domestic product, the Prime Minister emphasized that climate change is real and that steps are being taken for the country to improve its resilience and mitigation against this environmental issue.
Thank God we didn't have any big infrastructural damage this time, because I'm still finishing off the
December
2013 December floods.
Yeah.
And they take a lot of time, a lot of resources, manpower, and of course money. So people tend to, when the damage is done, a lot of people, when they go back to their homes and we help them with materials or rebuild their homes, that's only part of the problem, an important part. But still we have to do other things.
Town planner Bentley Brown is highlighting the need for more persons to insure their properties. Brown, who was a panelist on WFM's Sunday Morning Views and Issues program, said it is becoming strenuous for government to assist every home which suffered structural damage during a disaster. Hence, it is wise for persons to invest in an insurance policy for their homes.
As we go through intervention, the process where we continue to have more and more natural hazards, we will find that we can manage some of these hazards. And well, we can expect government to always be there to provide a lot of the help or assistance after these hazards or disasters. We have to become more willing to what we call, say, transfer some of these risks. And we could do that by insuring our properties, getting involved in whatever type of insurance. Unfortunately, in the OAS and the Caribbean, we are very much underinsured. People hardly want to insure their property unless it's a more or less a directive or a must to meet a condition from a bank. Once you do owe a bank for your property, most people just simply avoid insurance.
Brown also used the opportunity to speak on the importance of physical planning to improve the quality of habitation and to ensure regulations are maintained.
Not a static thing, it changes like everything else. But the whole focus and intention of planning is to basically improve the quality of life of people. A lot of people would feel that physical planning is concerned with land, but you know, people use land, and land remains a critical issue for our country. But people are at the center of land and the whole planning process. So planning is about people. I know there are a lot of people who don't have much confidence in planning, and they maybe have some good reason, but basically planning is promoted as an activity which would ensure that there is some level of order in our society, especially as it relates to the physical environment. But planning is also very critical if we are to utilize the limited resources we have effectively and efficiently.
In more local news, any nation that has made great developmental strides has done so by knowing and relying on their history and heritage. That's according to President of the Garifuna Heritage Foundation, David Darkey Williams, speaking on the Views and Issues radio program on NBC Radio on Sunday. Williams noted that such school of thought is needed in the Vincentian society, especially when it comes to the retention of the Garifuna heritage. He noted that while there is a strong retention of the Garifuna heritage within the Garifuna diaspora, persons here in SVG have lost their traditions and in some cases are using traditions which they may not know would have come from the Garifuna people. According to the cultural ambassador, if Vincentians are to grow as a people, they must first know and appreciate where they came from.
To know more of ourselves, and if we are to move forward as a nation, then we have to know ourselves and use what we know of ourselves to take us forward, because we will never be able to master a simple thing, the speaking of English. Us Vincentians, us Caribbean people will never be able to master the simple speaking of English, although it is our formal language. And many other things in the colonial culture that we as, if you would permit me to say Creole, we as Creoles will never be able to master, and we would be much more comfortable in doing what comes to us naturally. And what comes to us naturally is the things we have inherited from our foreparents.
Continues to foster closer links with the Garifuna diaspora as a way of retaining the heritage. Williams stressed the need for continued education of Vincentians, especially the youth.
There is a draft syllabus of local history for our schools. I think it is very localized. All of the material, the reading material, by local authors, because there have been a lot of writing done by Vincentians that touch on things that are historical and things that are well, let me just say historical as far as St. Vincent is concerned. And the syllabus has drawn from a lot of these writings. So I think in the next 10 years, Shava, the landscape, if we could call it that, in terms of our children understanding who they are and what is Vincentian, I think the stage is being set now.
Pointing out the significance of the annual Garifuna Conference, which is held by the Garifuna Heritage Foundation, the President further noted the need for more information about the Garifuna people to be made accessible to Vincentians.
Being held to receive material, to collect material. The Garifuna heritage, the Garifuna culture has been researched by a lot of people all across the world. And the material is lying there. Some of it have not been published, and all this documentation that we have been doing over 3 conferences belong to an organization called the IGRC. IGRC simply means International Garifuna Research Center, which is based here in St. Vincent and collecting material. We do not have a physical space from where you could reach this material, but we hope that would be rectified in very short notice. So I think people are beginning to become conscious that this culture, this heritage is important to St. Vincent and that it should be accessed.
And head of the University of the West Indies Open Campus, Deborah Dalrymple, commended the efforts of the Garifuna Heritage Foundation in creating a greater appreciation for the Garifuna heritage among Vincentians. She called on Vincentians to claim their heritage, as it is essential in how they go forward as a people and nation.
And for a long time, it was a source of shame rather than of pride. To be part of that culture, and very often the word Carib was used in a very derogatory way to tease and to put people down. And I think it's quite high time that we claim it. But of course, we don't claim something that we're not proud of. It's very important to show our history to our young people so that they can begin to take pride in who we are. But yes, there have been quite a lot of work done, and we're waiting for, I hope Dr. Fraser's here, and I'm waiting for the book so that we can have that. But we also have, as you have these conferences, people who are doing work. Like this year we do have Dr. Denny's going to be there and Dr. Cleve Scott. And I was just looking for the name of the PhD student from the University of Toronto. As Daki rightly said, it's people all over the world who are interested in Garifuna. And she's going to be presenting, Miss Shanella Charles is going to present it on her work in terms of reparations and so on.
Noting that people can only learn more if they are exposed to adequate amounts of information, librarian at the National Archives and Documentation Services, Gian Adams Julian, said there needs to be more material available to the public about the Garifuna people.
Well, what we have in our collection, it's a small collection, I might add, but we have a number of Vincentian books from our Vincentian collection and our thesis collection and also our rare book collection. One of the greatest challenges we have at the National Archives is the absence of legislation for collection development. We don't have, there's a legislation called legal deposit, where persons who write and publish work, they send it to the archives to have it there for future generations, and we don't have that type of legislation in St. Vincent right now. So it's a challenge for us to gather from different persons. When we hear about this activity, we have to go and beg, oh, give us this, please. But if we have legislation in place, then they will be legally required to send a copy of their work to us.
The forested areas of SVG have been minimally impacted by Tropical Storm Matthew. This is according to Director of Forestry Fitzgerald Providence as he spoke with SVG Television on the work that had been carried out by the department before Tropical Storm Matthew. Providence noted that the department continues to take a proactive approach in the preservation of the forested areas and spoke of some of the work done in preparation for natural disasters.
We had Hurricane Thomas and then the 2 troughs that caused serious damage in the forest. we've been on programs of riverbank stabilization in our upper watershed areas, and we've been, even with our forest roads, we have removed overhanging trees so that the roads will be clear when we go in to assess, and also for the long-term maintenance of the roads. In terms of our preparation in office, we tend to have our officers are always brought in and updated in terms of actions that we're supposed to take immediately after the storm. We tend not to do anything during any extreme weather because of the dangers, but after the storm we usually go out to assess and also to clear roads and homes and different things.
Providence noted that their main concern was soil slippage given the high amounts of rainfall brought by the storm.
So there would be the usual slippage in the interior forest, but we know those things will rehabilitate themselves as soon as possible once things go well in the tropical environment. In terms of our forests tend to also rehabilitate itself quickly. Our concern is where our activities, in terms of human activities, in terms of the deforestation or removal of vegetation close to riverbanks, you would have massive landslides caused by that. But we haven't had any reports of that. We've seen where some trees on embankment close to roads have slipped, and they were being removed, but there wasn't that much damage, I can say, this after Matthew in terms of the natural forest area.
The forestry director added that storms prior to Matthew had caused some damage to the forested areas and outlined some of the methods used to help regenerate the forests.
But in terms of the forest, what we've noted in those areas that had landslides, we'd have what we call the new generation of young plants, what we call pioneer species like trumpet bush and so on, what people know as trumpet bush. They would be coming in and taking over those areas. So the forest goes back into what you call a process of succession, and then we'll have the major trees coming back in. In areas where that is not happening, or in areas that have been deforested for other reasons, we tend to move in and we plant fast-growing trees. So what has happened after the 2013 is some of these areas have rehabilitated naturally. In other areas we have had to move in and do some work.
Kingdom Life Ministries of Curtains Barley are the new champions of the Bible Festival here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. On Sunday evening, the church edged out the two-time defending champions Faith Temple Church, who had to settle for second place. The final results show Kingdom Life Ministries coming in first with 359, Faith Temple Church second with 350, Hope for Life Restoration Ministries third with 347 points, and Shekinah Worship Center fourth with 267 points. The festival, which is organized by the SVG Gospel Fest Committee, is into its 8th year that was held under the theme Study to Show Thyself Approved.